My name is Dawn Abear, and I'm a member of Voters East of the Industrial Canal. To get started, I just would like to, if possible, Mr. Bosworth, Judge Bosworth, okay. If you would give us your full name, your profession, the number of years in the profession, and what seat you are seeking.
My name is Graham Bosworth. I am an attorney. I'm in private practice, and I have been an attorney for the past 15 plus years, and I'm running for Criminal District Court, Section D.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Holmes, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Kimya Holmes. I'm a practicing attorney. I've been practicing criminal law for 20 years, and I'm also running for Criminal District Court, Judge Section D.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to introduce you to Byron Gilmore. He's with You're Going to Film Me podcast. He will be a moderator, and as we're going along, we have Donna Glapion coming on, and she will also be a moderator. So Brandon, let's get started.
Good evening. Okay.
Good evening.
First questions I would like Ms. Bosworth to answer first.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Ms. Holmes to answer first, and Mr. Bosworth, you can go second. My first question is, how different are you from your opponent, and what plans do you have for your first 100 days if elected on the bench?
I'll start with the second part of that question first. I think in my first 100 days on the bench, the first thing I would need to do is look at how the docket has changed since this COVID pandemic. Although the courts have been closed for a while, they're starting to do some motion hearings, first appearances, things of that nature, but they haven't really had any trials, things of that nature. So that means there's definitely going to be an increase in the number of cases that each section has. D has had a very low docket recently, but I expect that number to increase because while cases have been coming in, i.e. the DA's office has still been accepting cases and charging people, they haven't been having situations where cases can be pled out or trials can be conducted. So I think one of the things that needs to be done is to look at what cases were in trial posture to make sure those cases are put back in trial posture so those cases can be disposed of, focusing primarily on those who have been incarcerated because I think those cases are of the utmost importance. Second, I will look at the new cases that have come in and have those people arraigned and also get them in a position where we can start motion hearings so we can get those cases into trial posture as well. I think the difference between my opponent and myself is that although we have similar backgrounds, meaning we both worked in the district attorney's office, we've done capital litigation and been criminal defense attorneys, my job in the DA's office was as a prosecutor. I tried cases. I tried my first case in 2001, and the entire time I was in the DA's office, I participated in over 80 judge and jury trials. I was a homicide prosecutor. I've tried rapes on robberies, first degree murders. I've actually tried a first degree murder through the sentencing phase. But I think the most important thing that separates me from my opponent is that I've seen every side of criminal district court. In 1997, I was a victim of a violent crime. And that case was actually assigned to Section D. Judge Marullo was the judge at the time, and he actually sentenced the people in my case. So my criminal justice experience did not start when I became an attorney. It started as being a victim in that building. So I have, in fact, been a victim, a witness, a prosecutor, a defense attorney, and I've even been appointed by the Supreme Court to serve as ad hoc judge.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes and Mr. Bosworth.
So the two-part question. First, I would say in terms of what differentiates Ms. Holmes and myself, I have extensive appellate experience, meaning that I've argued complex litigation at the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal, the Louisiana Supreme Court, and in federal court all the way up through the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal. My understanding of the law is, I think, deeper and broader because of that appellate experience. Secondly, while my opponent was appointed ad hoc in juvenile court, which typically means you're appointed on a case-by-case basis, I was appointed pro tem, which means I was actually the judge in criminal district court, Section D, for a period of 6 months. I was the judge for 6 months, day in, day out. I presided over 10 jury trials and upwards to 100 motion hearings while I was the judge in criminal district court, Section D. So I've actually not just done the job before, I've done this job before, and I did it well. The third primary difference I would say between us, in light of our similar background, is that I've been involved in criminal justice reform effort for the better part of the past decade. I have testified in Baton Rouge numerous times. I was involved in the legislation to do away with juvenile life. I was involved in the legislation to end non-unanimous jury verdicts. I've testified about prosecutorial oversight legislation. I've worked with votes on a number of cases to go testify in Baton Rouge. I've served as the chair of the Bar Association's Criminal Justice Committee, where I've written papers on the inequity of the bail bond system. I was a team leader in the Sentencing Commission, working to decrease sentencing ranges and get rid of mandatory minimums. It's been a focus of my career. It is why I'm running for judge now, and it's the mindset that I would bring to the bench. In terms of what I would do in the first 100 days, I mean, first and foremost, I would sit down and I would read every case. I would read the motions. I would familiarize myself with what is on the docket in Section D. The second thing I would do would be I would create a online docket. There is no justice without transparency. The fact that the public has no idea, what's said on any given day in criminal district court is a real problem. I would expand the ability to not just file online, but view filings online, so that attorneys and the public have the ability to access the court without actually having to go into the courtroom, especially in the COVID crisis. And finally, I would communicate with the public defender's office, private defense attorneys, and the DA's office, and work overtime to set statuses to see if there's resolution to cases to get the docket down.
Thank you, Mr. Bosworth. My next question is another two-part question. We'll start with Ms. Holmes first. What is your opinion in reference to Black Lives Matter, and why do you believe voters of Orleans Parish should elect you?
My opinion of Black Lives Matter, that's something that's actually near and dear to my heart. Obviously, I am a Black life and I do matter. I'm the mother of 2 daughters. I have sisters, brothers, fathers, uncles, nieces, nephews, who are all Black lives, and all their lives matter. About 2.5 months ago, I was a member of the crew of NICS. And one of the things that happened is that our captain decided to make an All Lives Matter post. That was something that was very troubling to me. I had been a member of NICS for almost 8 years. I had been a float lieutenant with NICS. I brought in my mom, my sister, my best friends, my cousins, aunts. We're all on my float. It was 97 of us. It was a family affair. But in that moment, none of that mattered because of what this captain said. So I took it upon myself to leave the crew. I made a public statement denouncing what she said. I made it known that although she was the captain and a spokesperson of the 3,500 women who were part of the crew of NICS, that wasn't how I felt. I ended up starting a new Mardi Gras organization called the Crew of Themis. And then recently, what we have done is we partnered with 6 schools in the New Orleans area, St. Catherine Drexel, St. Augustine, Booker T. Washington, Encore Prep, Frederick Douglass, and KIPP Leadership. They, like us, decided that they no longer wanted to be a part of the crew of NICS. They decided that they would not Mardi Gras, even though these schools take in all of this money that's used to get instruments, money that's used to buy uniforms. They thought taking a stance on Black Lives Matter was more important than that money. And we agreed with them. So we started a GoFundMe account on their behalf. And in less than 30 days, we've raised over $16,000 to give to those schools to offset the money that they were going to use to what they would have gotten from marching in the parades. And actually on last Wednesday, I was honored to go to each one of those schools, and we presented 6 checks in the amount of $2,635 to each school. I think that was probably one of the most important civic duties that I've done, just showing children that their sacrifices matter, that they're not just people that took parade in the street to be objectified, that we care about them and that their lives matter. I think people should vote for me in this race because I am committed I'm fair, and I'm experienced. I've dedicated my life to community service in the city of New Orleans from the age of 10, going to the mission to feed people on Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's something my parents instilled in me. It's something that I've instilled in my two daughters. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. We do activities throughout the year, through the city, throughout the country, giving back to our community. I'm a member of St. Peter Claver Church. I'm on the advisory committee there. I've also participated in legal clinics for those in the Treme area who could not afford representation, but they still deserve to get quality representation. We've done, I talked about what we've done with the crew of Themis. I also volunteer time as a Louisiana bar examiner, where I grade the bar exams for those law students who have graduated and are attempting to become members of the Louisiana State Bar. I've done this for 20 years. I've done this as a prosecutor. I've done this as a defense attorney. I have been appointed as a judge. And ad hoc judges are not just on a case-by-case basis. I actually served in juvenile court, and it was not on a case-by-case basis. You have situations where sometimes ad hoc judges are brought in, but this wasn't the situation where I was appointed in Judge Mark Doherty's section. Again, my name is Kimya Holmes. I'm number 88 on the ballot, and I would appreciate your support and your vote on November 3rd.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. And Mr. Bosworth?
What was the second part of the question again? If you may ask, if you can ask it again.
Oh, no problem. What is your opinion in reference to Black Lives Matter, and why do you think the citizens of Orleans Parish should elect you?
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, obviously, I'm a white male. I mean, I can't hide from that. But the fact that there are people in the country who persist in a notion of all lives matter is horrifying to me. All lives matter completely turns a blind eye to the fact that the system is unjust, it is inequitable, it treats Black people differently, be it the police who choose whether or not they choose to arrest, or the level of violence they choose to use when they effect arrests, to the choices prosecutors make as to who gets into diversion, who gets dismissals, whose charges are reduced, the degree to which individuals are charged, to the way judges sentence defendants, the way they handle cases, even whether or not they suppress evidence. I mean, there is hard statistical evidence showing that all of those decisions are different for Black people and brown people and people of color than they are for white people. The system is hard baked with inequities, and that has to change. It is something that I've seen as a prosecutor, it is something that I've seen as a defense attorney, and it's something I saw when I sat as judge in Criminal District Court Section D. I told this story a lot on the campaign trail. I was representing an individual who was charged with a rape, and he was a young Black male, and I was able to demonstrate scientifically his innocence. I got DNA evidence showing that the allegation was false. The prosecutor in Jefferson Parish said, I can get a conviction anyway. It's Jefferson Parish. And they went ahead and they took that case to trial. And the jury, which was predominantly white, simply because that's Jefferson Parish, they heard the evidence. I was able to argue to them that, people make accusations for any number of reasons, but science doesn't lie. Science is fact, and the science shows that he didn't do this. The jury came back with an attempt, which is kind of this legal nonsense that exists in Louisiana law. It's another one of these inequities that's built into the system, which was bad enough. Then the multiple bill was utilized, and this young man was punished for exercising his constitutional rights to go to trial, and he was given a life sentence because he lifted car door handles when he was 18 years old. The judge didn't. I filed a post-verdict judgment of acquittal saying, you've seen the science, you know this is false, you know the system failed. The judge did nothing. I filed a motion for new trial saying, Your Honor, even if you're not willing to put your political neck on the line here and grant an acquittal, give another attorney or another jury the opportunity to get this right. He did nothing. The appellate court did nothing. The Supreme Court did nothing. That wouldn't happen to a white male in Jefferson Parish. I mean, end of story. I've witnessed this day in, day out in my practice. It horrifies me, and it is why I got into criminal justice reform in the first place. In terms of why the citizens of New Orleans should vote for me, I have been doing this day in, day out for a decade. I started this process fighting the inequities in the criminal justice system when that case happened. My eyes were open. I was horrified at what I had just seen. I have been involved at every level, and the community level, and the court level, at Baton Rouge, with the business community. Changing and fighting the inequities in the system is what I've dedicated my career to. I have been, as I said, a team leader in the Sentencing Commission, challenging the ridiculous sentences that Louisiana imposes, and the fact that we have the highest incarceration rate per capita in the world. I have worked with Vote and Norris Henderson for years on legislation in Baton Rouge. I have served, as I said, as the chair of the Bar Association's Criminal Justice Committee for the past 3 years, where I have dedicated my time and effort to these inequities, to drawing attention to the horrible damage of money bail, to the damage of the multiple bill, the way those two systems drive mass incarceration, especially in the Black community. This is what I have dedicated, as I said, my career to doing. In addition, I've been a community leader outside of my criminal justice reform efforts. I was a founder or co-founder of Citizens United Against the Middle Belt. A few years ago, John Young in Jefferson Parish had decided that Old Metairie had become too wealthy to tolerate trains going through their neighborhoods, trains that the neighborhoods had been built around, trains that had been there for the better part of 100 years. And that he was going to use his leverage and the wealth of Jefferson Parish to move that train through Hollygrove, Gertown, Dixon, and Mid-City, through impoverished, at-risk neighborhoods of color. And I formed with leaders in Hollygrove, with leaders in Hollygrove Dixon, with leaders in Gertown and Mid-City, and we stopped it. We stopped the transport of toxic chemicals through at-risk communities simply because a wealthy suburb thought that they could get away with it. I've been the president and chair of the Mid-City Neighborhood Organization. I've worked with Oliver Thomas for years, going to schools in New Orleans to mentor and to teach them about the criminal justice system. And I have been working with the Justice and Accountability Center for, again, the better part of 10 years in their Clean Jacket program, which is a free legal clinic that's designed to allow people to expunge their records and move on with their lives. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is why I'm running for judge. And I've also had the honor and ability to be appointed by the Supreme Court to do this job, Criminal District Court Section D. I was appointed for half a year. I did the job well, and I stand before you asking for your support so I can do it again.
Thank you, Mr. Bosworth. And Donna, you here?
I'm here, Brandon. You can continue.
Okay. My next question, and we'll start with Mrs. Holmes again.
Brandon,
Yes.
you can go ahead and let Dawn go to the
All
next.
right.
Yeah.
Ms. Dawn?
I think she's muted.
Hit your mute, Ms. Dawn.
I got it. Okay. Well, the first group. When it comes to preventing deadly force by the police, do you agree or disagree that all law enforcement agencies should be federally regulated versus allowing states the discretion when it comes to statutes regarding stand your ground and no-knock warrant laws? So should it be federally mandated, or could it be by the state, whatever they would like to have happening in their location?
Is this, do you want,
Uh-huh.
just I'm trying to figure out if you want me to expound on this or just give an answer.
I just would like to know if you feel it should be federally regulated, or should it be controlled by the state? You know, like we know Florida has the stand your ground mandate. Who should be in control of that in their state? Federal government or the state?
I think that is something, I think it should be controlled by the state. One of the interesting things about that, though, is we notice in criminal court that you have certain cases that are crimes that can be defined in the Louisiana revised statutes, but those same crimes can be charged federally. And if this is something where a police officer is acting under the color of law, then that is a situation in which they could be prosecuted by the state and also prosecuted federally.
Thank you. Mr. Bosworth.
Ms. Holmes is right. When there is prosecutorial misconduct, it can be prosecuted either on the state level or on the federal level. The question, though, I believe, was whether or not the actions and limitations on police should be governed by the federal government and the state. And I think the answer, unfortunately, unequivocally, is that it needs to be governed by the federal government. The problems with NOPD were legion, and it required a federal consent decree before those issues even began to be remedied. Problems that existed within the jail were legion, and it required a federal consent decree to come in and address those issues. The federal government, for better or worse, even in its worst of times, which I would say we're under right now, still has a better track record of ensuring that constitutional rights, that individual rights are protected than our local law enforcement agencies have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bosworth, with the mounting mental care problems in the city of New Orleans, how do you propose to help improve the standards of care in the city? What will you do as a judge to improve the standard care that will contribute to the reduction of domestic-related and violent crimes?
Big question. So the first question, or part of the question, I believe, is what can I as a judge do to address the poor standard of mental health care that's in the city? The hard answer is, unfortunately, not a lot. Funding for mental health has been gutted decade after decade by gubernatorial regime after gubernatorial regime. And as a result, the only real system in the state of Louisiana to handle mental illness is the criminal justice system. That is a terrible, terrible way to address mentally ill people. Putting people through the criminal justice system because they're mentally ill is destructive to families, destructive to individuals, and exorbitantly expensive. Those are tax dollars that could be spent elsewhere on education or, frankly, on non-criminal justice related mental health treatment. Things that can be done is, as a judge, you can recognize mental illness. You can step in and even sua sponte ask for sanity commissions and competency commissions to be appointed in cases to ensure that people don't necessarily slip through the cracks and go to jail simply because they're mentally ill. As a judge, I would reach out to some of the community service partners that do exist, even with their limited funding, to allow for treatment of individuals in a manner that doesn't require them to be incarcerated, be it the Metropolitan Human Services or any number of other agencies that are willing to assist as community partners. And then finally, while a judge can't necessarily lobby in Baton Rouge, what a judge can do is use their platform to advocate. They can use the not advocate, to educate. They can use that platform to go to City Hall, to go to Baton Rouge, to speak on the inequities of the system as it relates to mental health and the damage that is done by using criminal justice as the means to address mental health issues.
Thank you. Not to cut you off, but we're kind of running out of time, but thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Holmes.
What I would plan to do in Criminal Court Section D is to start a specialty court which focuses on mental health. Right now, there are 13 sections of criminal district court, and only one of those sections, Section I, has a mental health court. And I think that's just not enough. Mental health, there's this stigma with it in this society as a whole, and I think we need to see it for what it is. It is an illness. People are being incarcerated because of an illness. We don't incarcerate people who have cancer. We don't incarcerate people who have COVID-19. We should not incarcerate people who are mentally ill. As a capital defense attorney, one of the things that we focus on is mitigation. And mitigation talks about reasons why a person should choose life instead of death in death penalty cases. And it's focused on mental health. For the last 12 years, we have gone to seminar after seminar on mental health, recognizing mental health, seeing how people are undiagnosed, underdiagnosed, or misdiagnosed when it comes to mental health. So I think one of the most important things we could do is start that specialty court in there so people can receive the treatment that they need and not be incarcerated because of an illness.
Thank you very much. Well, our time is up. I want to thank both of you for joining Voters East of the Industrial Canal. I applaud you for running for judge. and good luck in your campaigns. Thank you very much.